Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for, obviously, it's been a long day. I'm sure you're all looking forward to the beers and the pastis, in the case of the Frenchmen. My name is Peter, and I am the founder of a company called Multiven. And Multiven is essentially the world's doctor for the internet. So, quick background, I spent about 5 years as the technical leader for Cisco, initially in London and then in California. And in 2005, I said to myself, this thing called the internet has a lot of potential. And the way it's structured today, you have manufacturers of networking equipment in the US, in China, and as we know, it has an expression in England. It says, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. So, American companies making software we always have, vulnerabilities in the code that could be exploited by the governments, and so on and so forth. And same thing the Chinese, same thing the Russians, and everybody else in Europe, and so on and so forth. So I said to myself, in 2005, that this thing called the internet has a lot of potential. We haven't scratched the surface of it. And I strongly believe that ultimately in the future, ultimately in the future, everything on Earth will have an IP address. Everything will have an internet protocol address and be thus connected to the internet. Now, if everything is connected to the internet, it needs an objective and independent doctor to look after the infrastructure and the software. So we founded Multiven in 2005 with the sole mission of creating the world's first decentralized, this is 2005, believe it or not, the world's first decentralized platform that will essentially heal the internet. The long-term goal was that we heal the internet, we create some sort of software and AI engine that will heal the internet with minimal human intervention. And so in 2006, we created this AI called MySolver, and we needed experts to come and teach the AI. So we hand-selected 1,200 experts, security researchers, cryptographers, and internet engineering experts from 55 countries. Hence the decentralization in 2005, 2006. And we launched a platform, it's called Pingster, P-I-N-G-S-T-A. So Pingster had 1,200 experts in the internet community. And we had folks like Dr. Lawrence Roberts, who is the man that designed the ARPANET in 1967. We had Tony Lee, who co-invented BGP4, which is the routing protocol that runs the internet infrastructure. And we had a little guy, God bless his soul, called Hal Finney. He was member number 62. Hal Finney is Satoshi Nakamoto. He essentially, in my opinion, created Bitcoin. So anyway, fast track, we spent the better part of the last 10 years cementing the technology that we created to objectively and independently maintain the internet infrastructure. So about 24 months ago, we said, now that we've done that in our world, we see the internet as the layer one, right? So it says that without the internet, right, there's no blockchain. Without computers called nodes or servers that relay and validate all this data, there's no Bitcoin. And without Bitcoin, there will be no cryptocurrency. All the stuff we're talking about today, blockchain this, project that, it's all because Satoshi invented Bitcoin and invented blockchain. That's it. So in our opinion, we have a strong and firm belief that Bitcoin is a reserve currency for this ecosystem. And as such, we said to ourselves that we want to cement this future. We're probably the only ones in the world who can do this, objectively, without a political agenda. So we are creating what we call the world's first marketplace on the blockchain for the $3-4 trillion IT products and services market. So that when you want to buy a smartphone, a computer, a server, a firewall, you can go to the resellers, you can go to retail shops, you can go to Amazon, you can go to eBay, you can go to Alibaba. Those are all centralized entities. They capture your data, they check your transactions, and they tell you where they can sell to and where they won't sell to. So we are essentially changing the game by launching the world's first marketplace on the blockchain that will enable everybody on Earth to buy and sell on a peer-to-peer basis without trusted third parties, solely powered by smart contracts. To do that, we're launching what we call the MUM. And let me give a perspective of a quick history of commerce. As you know, when you want to buy coffee, you go to the coffee shop, Starbucks. It's a physical experience. You go in, you pay, you leave. You get your coffee. We call that P-commerce, right? Fast track to 1995, 97, 98, 99. The internet came up. E-commerce started. We can buy stuff on the internet. It's fantastic. But Amazon is centralized, right? eBay is centralized. All these platforms that we have today in what we call Web 2.0, they're all centralized entities that keep our data and essentially manage all these things. So we're now at the cusp of the next tier. The next tier is blockchain-based commerce. We call it B-commerce. And let me tell you what B-commerce is going to do. So with B-commerce, we can now transact on a peer-to-peer basis without any humans whatsoever. So that means, KPN in Netherlands, the telco, or BP, or Shell, or Total, or Capgemini, Atos, they can now begin to decentralize sourcing. With this, you can decentralize procurement. So rather than just being focused on your theater or your country and issuing RFPs and all that stuff, you can issue RFPs to 7 billion people on Earth and source from everybody through the blockchain. So, and the reason why we think this is powerful is that with this, so with B-commerce, we can now trade on a peer-to-peer basis. It's not John selling to Jane, it's address XYZ on the Ethereum blockchain, selling to address ABC on the Ethereum blockchain. But this is the foundation for the next tier, which is what we call the A-commerce, AI to AI commerce. So you buy stuff, you move into a new apartment, you fill up your fridge, 12 eggs, 6 apples, right? And you go down to 6 or 3 eggs. Your fridge can now automatically, as an AI engine, powered, will procure and purchase and refill your eggs without you being involved whatsoever. So that's the next frontier, in our opinion. So what are the benefits of the Multiven open marketplace, for instance? For consumers, we're strong believers that because there are no intermediaries, you have lower OPEX, lower CAPEX. You can now, for companies and businesses around the world, they can now, for the first time ever, decentralize sourcing. So rather than saying that I'm in Netherlands, I'm only going to issue an RFP to companies and suppliers in Netherlands, you can essentially issue your RFP to everybody on Earth, and source, And one of the cool things that we're doing that's very exciting as well is the fact that as part of the transactions handling, when you sell, when you post an item for sale on the marketplace, for instance, we take the data that's constant, like the type, the vendor, manufacturer's Apple, serial number is 1234, or part number is iPhone 7X. We take the constant data, we store it off-chain, we link it cryptographically to the variable data on the chain, which we store on the chain, like ownership, location, the cost of it. And as when you do sell that item to the next person, we update the blockchain with that new record, and so on and so forth. So as part of the transactions that we handle on the MUM, we are essentially creating the world's first immutable proof of ownership record of IT assets on the blockchain. You remember I said earlier that everything on Earth will ultimately have an IP address. That means ultimately, this will become the proof of ownership oracle for all decentralized applications globally for anything that's IP enabled. That's our long-term goal. What else? Because we know the part X is located in Netherlands, part Y is in Paris, part Z is in Shanghai, we're also, as a byproduct, creating what we call a global network install base. So we're backing up the install base of the internet onto the blockchain so that it can be restored back from the blockchain should there be outages around the world at different locations and so on and so forth. So those are some of the things we're talking about. What else? What are the benefits of the MUM for dApps, decentralized applications? As I mentioned earlier on, immutable proof of ownership record on the chain is the first of kind. That means if I buy an Apple laptop from him, or from Apple, his Apple, I buy it from him, and I sell it to Paul, right? Apple, Cisco, HP, Lenovo, and so on and so forth, those manufacturers, they have a record of the first person, the first purchase of the items. But when you go ahead and sell that stuff to the next person, and the next person sells to the third and fourth and fifth, they have no visibility into that. And the challenge with them is when they have to offer things like post-sale support, right? How do you go as a third owner of an item? How do you go and prove that it belongs to you to get support or software update, right? With the MOM, dApps can access the Multiven open marketplace and verify conclusively that this device belongs to you at time T, and so on and so forth. Benefits to Bitcoin nodes. So remember I said earlier that obviously from our perspective, Bitcoin is the foundation currency for this entire industry. We're strongly tied to Bitcoin because of the work that Hal Finney did. Hal was a member of our community in the past. God bless his soul, as I said earlier. So one of the cool things that we're doing that no one else on earth can do, not in America, not in China, not in Russia, not even in Europe. We're the only ones in the world that can do this. We are essentially deploying our technology, our expertise that we've garnered over the last 12 years, our AI. We're pushing this to protect Bitcoin node infrastructure globally against what we call centralization cyber attacks. If Bitcoin becomes centralized within one jurisdiction, say in Europe or China or Russia or the US, the government can take steps to regulate it or shut it down. If that happens once, it's game over for the entire industry. So we are taking a portion of the transaction fees from the MOM and using it to compensate the experts, the pool of experts we have that will now essentially begin to cyber, defend, and harden not the nodes themselves, but the nodes require a router, or a router like they say in the States, to speak to other nodes connected on the internet. So we are protecting and hardening the gateways that the nodes rely upon to get onto the internet and speak to other nodes. That's one of the key things we're doing. And as a side project, over the next 4 or 5 years, we're going to be creating what we call open source nano satellites. They're less than 10 kilograms in size. We're going to essentially load Bitcoin Core onto them, Ethereum Core as well, and put the first 9 in low Earth orbit so that we can actually decentralize nodes out of Earth into orbit. So those are some of the things we're doing. And obviously, as I mentioned earlier, the MOM is completely automated. There are no humans involved whatsoever. It will be live in about Q1 next year. It's fully powered by smart contracts. And obviously, it's a huge market. We're looking at a $3-4 trillion IT products market. So we've just issued 2 billion, that's a max supply, 2 billion multi-coins. This will be the sole medium of exchange within the platform. And we started an ICO about 3-4 weeks ago. We're selling just 10%, distributing 10% of the coins into the ecosystem, and probably doing a reverse auction next year. So we urge everybody to get involved because this is the future of commerce. I'm not going to go into the details of this, but it's very simple. At a high level, this is how it works. I put something on the marketplace to sell. Say it's a laptop. I want to sell for 10 multi-coins, right? And he wants to buy it from me for 10 multi-coins. Essentially, the smart contract would check and pull the 10 multi-coins from him, put in escrow, and then both the buyer and the seller, we have to stake 2x of the value of the device, of the asset, or the product or service, in escrow to ensure that we're both of good behavior. And once the transaction is completed without any hassles, the escrowed amounts are returned, and everybody goes on their merry way. Just a quote recently about a denial of service attack that occurred, I think about a month ago, where one of the core developers was posted on Twitter that there was an attack that was ongoing, and this just emphasizes the fact that somebody needs to do this job. In the next 4 to 5 weeks, we're going to release in the first of its kind a live map of all Bitcoin nodes and all their internet gateway routers. And that will be the beginning of our we'll call it the B-Fence, which is a blockchain, Bitcoin, cyber defense program, where we actively monitor around the clock all the nodes and protect them so that they become permanent. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we call the Nodes in Orbit project. As I said earlier, we're researching and developing nanosatellites that will essentially be just, commercial off-the-shelf x86, bare metal boxes. We load a portion of Ubuntu software on top. We put some routing software on top of it, as well as what we call DTN. DTN is RFC 4838, I think. Is it 4838? Yeah. Which is basically delay-tolerant networking. It's a protocol that was defined at the IETF level that allows objects that are too far to speak TCP/IP to each other. They will speak on a best effort basis using DTN, when you have objects in orbit that are at interplanetary distances. But the goal is to have this NEOs in orbit within the next 4 years, and we're going to release the architecture and the designs so that others can do the same thing if they want to do it. I know the Blockstream streams, blockchain data into satellites. I know that Space Chain, they're doing some stuff with Team Draper and all a bunch of folks. So we're bringing together a team of some serious experts to make this happen, some ex-NASA folks, ex-SpaceX folks, to help develop this, and hopefully we build some sort of consortium around this. The first now will be in orbit in 2022, and that's pretty much it. The team, we have a bunch of folks right now. Nicholas is ex Nick is ex COO, Senior Vice President at SAP and Capgemini. Victor is ex COO of Huawei in China. He's based in Singapore. Sean is one of our advisors for NEO. Sean is actually one of the very, very early Bitcoin activists and advocates around the world. Bogdan is a strong Ethereum developer, and Paul is in South Africa. Gilbert is in Paris, and these are very senior level folks that are helping us to realize this mission. And of course, the team in Paris as well. What else? Some numbers. Roughly, we're anticipating that in 2019, we should see roughly 0.01% of all the global transactions, routed through the MUM, which is very, tiny, 300 million. We hope to capture roughly 1% of the market share in the next 3 to 4 years, and by 2023, hopefully about 3% of market share, i.e., $90 billion worth of transactions should be flowing through in multi-coins through the platform. The ICOs that we have ongoing right now, as I mentioned earlier, we have a max supply of 2 billion coins to service a $4 trillion market. We are selling roughly 5 to 10% in the ICO, distributing that in the ecosystem right now. We have an incentive program and so on and so forth. But the key thing to realize is that we're sitting on the Ethereum blockchain. It's an ERC20 token. It's 50 cents each as we speak right now. And the goal is that we actually have to put a max on how much each investor can buy because, as you can imagine, Orange, KPN, Capgemini, all these big companies, they could buy the entire thing and burn the tokens. So to ensure liquidity in the marketplace, in this round, the maximum that a single investor can actually purchase is no more than 1,000 Ether worth of tokens. So that it's fair. We didn't do a pre-sale. We didn't do a pre-ICO. We don't, in our opinion, we think things like that are just counterproductive to what Satoshi Nakamoto will do. I mean, the whole essence of this is to ensure a fair distribution of assets to everybody, rather than just selling all your tokens to 10, 20 high heavyweight investors and not doing a public sale. So no pre-sale, no pre-ICO. It's very open. It's very standard. We're going to do this, and whether we raise a penny or not, we're going to launch we're going to achieve all our goals because we're a successful business. We've been in business for 13 years. We've never raised a penny in venture capital, so we're independent financially. We're profitable. We've been profitable since 2006, and we're essentially just tokenizing a successful business, and it's going to be fun. Roadmap right now. Sorry, pardon. From a roadmap perspective, where ICO is live right now. That's where we set about 4 weeks ago. In about 3-4 weeks, we're going to launch the first map of our Cyberdefense product, which will be a free service for Bitcoin nodes. And essentially, we're going to obviously look to start the research of nodes in orbit with Sean and Kevin, who is ex-NASA, and so on and so forth. They will be helping with that. But the key thing is that by Q1 next year, we should have we should launch the stable version of MUM, and the wallet should come up in Q1 as well. Some customers. that we have today. We have quite a number more. Some we can talk about in public, some we can't, because they're classified agencies and so on and so forth. But we are probably the only ones in the world that's able to do what we do. And the power of that is because we've built the company as a decentralized company from the bottom up. And this thing called the internet is pretty powerful, as you've seen, and it's a future. This system, this ecosystem, this blockchain world, this Bitcoin world, this cryptocurrency world, it's here to stay, and it's fun to see so many cool people supporting it, and with Chainges as well, doing all this great stuff. Thank you very much. That's my pitch.
That was it, Peter. Thank you so much. Peter was our last speaker of today.